I didn't want to give you guys too much of a countdown on our viewership lineup or our viewership count because just like we are counting down the days of the NFL, I'm very excited about the NFL. I think you guys are very excited. So I want to get right to it. But first, like we've always been doing, Donnie has his first 10 minutes. Donnie, what's been cracking a few eggs for you today?
All right. Well, we've got one specifically big thing happened this week. Two major sports teams sold, essentially. I don't know exactly how the financial stuff works. The Hornets sale is officially approved. The Commander sale is officially approved. Dan Snyder's gone. Magic Johnson in. And we got a potential name change coming for them. They were hinting at it.
Yeah, so, I heard they might just be going back to the football team because they don't really have a good option.
If they can get those Red Wolves, I mean, they might be willing to take the money to pay for it.
I don't think calling them the Red Wolves is any better than calling them the Commanders.
I think the public disagrees with that.
Look, I think there are cool names that you could do, but like, in all honesty, it's all about the branding. It's like what the logo look like. What are you selling to the people? Like calling the football team makes sense if you put your backing behind it. Like
I honestly thought it had a ring to it.
And that's the thing is,
the Washington Red Wolves.
Washington football team had a real ring to it, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm saying.
A cool name.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. Like, I don't think that's a really cool name. You might, but like, I don't really like the Red Wolves. Really,
it was a high popularity vote from the public.
But that's my thing.
When has the public ever really been right? To be honest, yeah.
But that's my thing. It's like more than anything, you want to get your community involved. And so, like, we've seen it with, like, the XFL and different things. Like, you could have awesome names, an awesome idea, and the execution is terrible. Or the logo just looks weird. Or, like, even the mascot kind of gives off a different vibe. So, like, I can't judge it just off of a name. I got to see the whole package.
Right.
Because the whole package is going to sell me. Like, if the color scheme is like, for example, Pittsburgh Steelers, totally awesome traditional franchise, like the black and yellow, but those Bumblebee uniforms they try to bring back as a retro outfit are terrible. Like, it's terrible. So, like,
I like bad things.
Some people do. Like, that's the thing. Also, though, Donnie, you're not going to appease everyone. So that's what I'm saying. Is I want the whole package. Because at least if you can package it to a way that makes sense, it's like, even if I disagree with the aesthetics, it's like, at least I understand the vision.
Yeah, I think the Bumblebees worked at that, like, when they brought it back at that time, because they also had the Killer Bees. Like, so, with Ben, Brown, and Bell.
Yeah, that's really the only reason it worked.
Yeah, that, like, if they brought it back now, I'd be like, oh. But it worked at the time because it was the Killer Bees.
But again, it's that total package. It works with, your Killer Bee scenario. Just like different things will iconically pop in your mind when you think of certain logos or certain designs. So people act like it doesn't matter. It does. But if it's the only thing that matters, then your franchise probably isn't very good.
So, yeah, I was about to say, I just don't want to get too much into the speculation of the name change. I just wanted to talk about how, we had, that's big news. Michael Jordan sells his team. We get the worst owner probably in sports out of the NFL. Officially, it's 100% done.
But can I bring up a point that I don't think a lot of people are talking about? Remember, Snyder said he had a lot of information on a lot of these owners. And apparently so does John Gruden. And so do you think now that, like, it's done and dusted from that perspective, and we all want to celebrate as fans, I don't think, anyone on this panel wants to take Snyder's side, but do you think, like, it almost opens up a can of worms that would be, like, unprecedented? I can't think of a better word for what we might find out, whether it be John Gruden or Snyder. They both say they have damning evidence.
To me, you can have as damning evidence as you want. The NFL is not going anywhere. No matter how we look at it, it's still going to be marketable. It's still going to be successful. And maybe for the wrong reasons. And
Perhaps. But does that change like what we do though, Donnie? I mean, like, because you're right, it's not gonna go it's not gonna go away. I'm not saying like a volcano is gonna hit the NFL like falls off the sporting landscape. But does it change like fantasy? Does it change DraftKings? Does it change like our day to day with football?
I don't think so. Maybe it changes their sponsors.
Yeah. Gov, would it do anything to the fandom of the NFL, you think?
Probably not. No.
I've been thinking about that because, like, everyone loves to speculate, right? And the speculation is what drives shows like Stephen A. Smith or Skip Bayless. Like, no, go ahead.
My thing is like if it came out that 5 of the NFL owners were murderers. And I'm still watching football. Like maybe that makes me a bad person for not being able to stick to my guns and everything, but I'm still gonna watch.
Right. Well, I mean, the NFL would spin it down and say like, well, there's still 20 plus owners that are good.
Exactly.
Like, there's always
and I'm on the side of like I don't care. I'm
right.
Separation of church and state. Guess what? Separation of dumb fuck and business. I will always eat Chick-fil-A. I do not care how much the owner gives to destroying the gays. I don't care. I do not care. So
Right.
if you got a problem, deal with him. However he wants to spend his money for having his business, don't care. You say 5 of the owners are fucking murderers. What if one of them's the dude who just bought the Broncos? I'm still shopping at Walmart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like
100%. 100%.
Like, once you create a business, it's the business. If you are a dick and a horrible person, there are a lot of horrible people who run and make money off of businesses that maybe they had a hand in creating. I'm going to still, and like, if you don't want to give your money to that business, fine. But you're going to end up not doing a lot of shit in this country.
And here's some easy, like one-off answer for you. Go Amazon, Apple, Nike. These brands have all been thought of as less than from a humanitarian standpoint, but it's business. You know what I'm saying? Like you could add Subway to that. Like, of course, there are moments in that franchise or franchises that they wish they could get rid of. But part of peddling a business is the dark side that nobody wants to admit, or maybe we haven't even discovered yet, and that's just part of it.
Yeah,
it's
but
not an excuse.
While we are talking about a volcano that could erupt and change the NFL landscape, I think we have to bring up the fact of this running back meeting that just happened. 10 running backs in the NFL, 10 starting running backs. Now, one of them was like J.K. Dobbins, so, whatever. But, at
starting, you can't see the quotation marks on my fingers, but starting running back.
That's exactly my point. But, there was Derrick Henry. There was Austin Eckler headed it. There's most of them were superstars. Christian McCaffrey was there. Mm-hmm. These are all confirmed. This is a big deal for the NFL. If they bring this together, and this could be a big issue. If all these running backs start to get together and start holding out,
then they're going to hurt their own union, and then their entire league is going to get cracked down.
100%.
This isn't even going to be from the league. This is going to be the players union telling the running backs, shut the fuck up, or we will blackball you, and just say, okay, if that's how you feel, then Eli Mitchell will be the starting running back for San Fran. Go away, Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
We will replace Derrick Henry. Like, they will do that.
See, I think that's more likely to happen too than anything else.
Like, this is like
there's always going to be a running back who wants to play.
The writer's strike has more to work on than the running back strike, these running backs. No, I'm sorry. It is actually horrible with how they take so much punishment and they keep diminishing the salaries of every running back. Where it's like, I saw something. I was about to say, I saw it on Twitter or Facebook scrolling the other day. It was just a little stat that I didn't even realize that the entire Philadelphia running back room is making as much this year as Miles Sanders is from the Panthers.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even, it's barely $7 million. Where Beckham's getting twice that to 3 times that in a 1-year deal and hasn't even played. Like, there are punters and kickers making more than $7 million.
Punters are people too.
I know, but they're not running backs in the NFL.
Right.
And they shouldn't be getting paid more than them. You better be able to punt that ball, bolt downfield through coverage, and recover your own damn kick if I'm paying you more than my running back.
And
I'm sorry. Maybe that's bad business, but that's where I think like the running backs have a problem, because that's going to just keep happening because of the passing, because wide receivers and quarterbacks are taking up so much of the money. There's nothing left for the other guys, and the quarterbacks are going to petition for their offensive linemen before they petition for their running back.
But you got to hear me out with this though. Like, when you look at it, statistically speaking, outside of anything, the average running back yardage leader in the league every year is about 25, 20. I think it's 25.6 or like 26.5, something like that. They're not even in your second contract at that point. That's the average leader.
Yeah, you're maybe like in the first year of it. Like, if you got through the entire 4-year of a rookie deal, you might be in the first year.
Second stat that we got that's pretty damning is the last 10 Super Bowl leading rushers for Super Bowl winning teams are making less than $1 million. Literally less than $1 million, most of them.
Yeah.
So there is correlation with not paying your running backs. And that's just,
that's the thing. The league has shown there's, like you're giving us, there's data showing. Even us playing DraftKings lineups know to not put as much money and salary into the running back position just because of its usage and points potential and ceiling compared to everything else.
And it varies. Even like a game like Best Ball at Gov, you see it where it's like we expect running back injuries more to be handcuffed more than any other position there is.
That it's the one position you have the term handcuff. You want this guy, you also need this guy because they might split. He might get injured, and this guy plays now. I don't worry about that. Like, I'm not having to get T. Higgins if I get Jamar Chase.
Right.
If anything, I might not get it's highly unlikely because of the way that offense works that I get both.
And you said it perfectly. Like, there's a difference between the structural business and the almost like a DraftKings lineup. There's a way to build and construct a lineup and construct a team. And then there's like the Derrick Henry. Do you care about Derrick Henry, the person? Of course, right. You can do both of those.
You can do both of those, and there are going to be prolific running backs. I still think McCaffrey has that, like when it comes to DraftKings, I still think McCaffrey has that kind of ceiling. I still think he's that dynamic of a running back.
Yeah.
I'm just not like, especially with me being more like, I would say I'm more of a new school football guy because my main football focus and what I've seen basically comes from the year 2000 on, whereas I know of 90s and 80s football and have seen film of 70s and 80s and 90s football, but I don't have any connection to the Bills that lost 4 straight times or to any of those Cowboys teams or to Joe Montana at all, Jerry Rice at all. But I know fuck Tom Brady. I know that 20-year period.
Since I've been a football fan, and like a distinctive football fan that pays attention to anything, one of the best running backs to win a Super Bowl is LeGarrette Blount.
Wow. God. I mean,
the first
me,
Super Bowl I really cared about. Okay, yeah, no, it would be Marshawn. It would be Marshawn.
The first one against Peyton, like that Seattle team, it's Marshawn for me.
I was saying,
like
the
running back that won the Super Bowl, it's Marshawn. It would have been Gurley if the Rams had beaten the Patriots in that Super Bowl.
Well, Gurley didn't really play, and CJ
Anderson
was better.
That's because Gurley couldn't play during the playoffs. He was injured and done. But everything he gave those teams for 3 to 4 years to get them to that point, I would have just said like Gurley, like right there, like Todd Gurley, even though it was only 3 years, maybe 4 years, he's one of the greatest running backs I have ever actually watched.
So
Me too.
Let me go back to make this point very clear before we continue. We're all three of us, I think, would agree on this point that the running back position is not paid fairly. But that's because the industry or the idea of how the pay structure is in the NFL isn't constructed fairly. Like in a lot of positions, in a lot of different, even avenues within football, like the trainers, the equipment staff, like the amount of hours they must put in, preparing helmets, making sure jersey numbers are right, like all that stuff down to the minute detail are so important from a visual, like you better get this right perspective, that we just assume that like that kind of perfection or that kind of like nuance or level of detail is just like the standard. Somebody's told us to do that, each week to a flawless level. So this is not us deeming the performance of any running back. And honestly, I think the only way to fix this is to get rid of the label running back and just look at positions as weapons or utilization.
Skill player. Yeah. It's like you have a quarterback, you have up to 5 skill players, and then you have your 5 offensive linemen. And that's your 11-man.
Fair. And I'll let you get in here, Don, but I think what you're going to say is, hey, how do you decide that from a banter? Like, how do you discern Gibbs versus McCaffrey? And the honest truth is you don't. Like you would still have to rely on owners and coaches to appreciate that player. And some players will still slip through the cracks. It's just the truth of it.
My thing is, no matter what, somebody's going to be lined up in the backfield, and they're going to be underpaid. And I do say most of these running backs are underpaid, but if the data is going to back up being underpaid like that, then what's I don't get what the argument is.
I was going to say, at what point is it underpaid, or is it that just is your price?
Like that's exactly my point. Like,
but then that's sort of what they're arguing. It's like, this can't be our price, considering what we actually have to do. Because like it is sort of like the double-edged sword of like, the math proves that running backs are sort of expendable. You can sort of not pay them and just get new ones, and they can adapt to systems and have hot years.
Every year, like we have a 4th-round running back come out of the cracks and be a stud. Every single year.
Right. But then there's the juxtaposition of like, so yeah, they're that dispendable because you can replace them whenever, but they're also... they're that disposable because you can replace them whenever, but they're also taking as much punishment as, or like, the only people who take more punishment than them is offensive linemen.
Yes.
Because the second you hand the running back the ball, the play does not end till he either gets hit or he has to, usually at full speed, stop his own momentum.
And let's be honest. Offensive line is a position where if you know their name, that is actually a negative. Like,
yeah, if you know, like most of the time, if you know someone's name, it's not because they were playing good. It's because they have penalties, and it's like, now I'm watching him to make sure he don't fuck up.
Now,
well,
there's
I get what you're saying, but I don't know. I've always paid attention to offensive linemen, so
you're niche.
See, I know my team's offensive lineman. But, like, if I know another team's offensive lineman, it's because I've seen them make a penalty.
Okay, but, like, everyone knows Zach Martin. Everyone knows Trent Williams.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
No, like, who the hell is Zach Martin? I know Trent. I've heard the name Trent Williams.
Really?
I know he's a tackle. Is Zach Martin one of those 5
guys for the Cowboys? Yes.
Okay. I know the Cowboys have a lot of good offensive linemen. I don't actually know.
They don't anymore, though. That's the thing.
Donnie, I'm telling you. You're living in a bubble, man. I know these guys. You could probably list off 20 off the line.
I honestly don't know. Like, I could not name you a Cowboys offensive lineman.
And I know why.
If I start naming them, I'm probably going to name you the ones that were protecting Romo 5 or 10 years ago.
Here's why, Gov, and be honest. It's because you play things like DraftKings and offensively driven, analytical analysis like Rainmakers or fantasy football or like.
Yeah, and I don't have to worry about offensive linemen in that.
Don't worry
So, like,
about
there's the only place I'm ever going to learn about an offensive lineman is if they have a story in the news or if they are I'm watching them take penalties.
And I'll be honest with you.
Excuse me for a second.
Yeah, of course. That I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm saying like that is the way of most fans. Like Gov is an extreme football fan. Like there are people.
I am shocked he doesn't know offensive linemen.
He's not joking either. Like a lot of DFS people don't know defensive players. Like there's a big DFS like guy knows tons about like promoting his channel. He's big on YouTube and like in the space. His name is Davis Maddock, excuse me, and he knows like some defensive players. Like he grew up a Cowboys fan. His dad was a Cowboys fan. He's now a fan of Kansas City because that's where he lives. Like he knows certain teams and like marquee defensive players, but he could not name you like the defensive line. He couldn't name you one defensive lineman from every team in the league. And like that's the thing is I'm saying like there's even offensive linemen that you don't know. Like if I asked you what position you know the least about, offensive lineman's probably up there.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not acting like I can name you three offensive linemen from any team, but
me and you are pretty aficionados. Like for us to have weaknesses, it's got to be pretty drastic. And even we would have weaknesses, and then Gov is totally transparent.
I cannot believe like the Zach Martin thing just blows my mind.
That's a marquee guy. To that point, that's a marquee team. I didn't mean marquee guy.
That's the Cowboys. That's the best guard in the league. Well, Nelson, but
let's even look at it. The best offensive line statistically last year was the Eagles. Still a very big team in terms of that like traditional garb, right? And they went to the Super Bowl recently.
Yeah, before we finish this, who's the best tackle on the Eagles, Gov? Do you know?
I could not name you an Eagles offensive. Well, no, I can name you Kelsey. I can name you their center. That's it.
That's because of
but
Kelsey.
I only know that because of Travis.
Yeah.
Right. Lane Johnson.
Lane Johnson.
Okay, I've heard that name. I would not.
And he is psycho. He's like, besides the injuries, he was the one who started the whole dog mask thing, I believe.
He was the former tight end he has that whole position change.
Jordan Mailata from Australia, I think it was, playing rugby.
Yeah. But, I mean, that's the best offensive but best offensive lineman, Gov, to that point. Like, if I said who's the best offensive lineman, I bet you could name probably 4 of the top, 7 offensive linemen or offensive line teams, like as a unit. I really believe you could do that.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like Detroit had a good line last year, but I'm trying to remember that their main guy. It's off because right now all I can think of is their defensive guy Hutch.
But that's my point. You don't have to know the individual names.
I know more defensive linemen than I know offensive linemen.
I don't think that's weird though. I think that's normal.
But but what I'm saying is because of DFS, like what running backs did well or what offensive linemen blocked well. So like the unit as a whole. The Lions are up there, the Eagles are up there, and and I just think that's the way it is. Like even my like younger nephews and stuff, they know players because of fantasy football. They don't follow teams. They're like, Jamar Chase is my favorite, wide receiver, and I'm like, oh, you're a Bengal fan? They're like, no. that kind
Are you an LSU fan? No, don't have to like.
Right,
it has nothing to do with the team.
It's happening more and more, and like I'm a victim. Like I went to the doctor the other day. The guy saw my Michigan lantern. He's like, oh, I went to Michigan State. You're a Michigan Wolverines fan. I'm like, yeah, they'd be the team I would support. But to be honest with you, I follow sports for so many reasons that like. I follow player performance more than I follow team success. And you know what his next words were, Gov? Oh, you gamble on sports. I said 100%. Like, it's part of the culture now.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, so we can have this nice transition, what are some what are some like advantages, some nuances, some things that you were looking forward to trying this year, Go, as the experience? I think me and you might have been playing around the same time. You might actually have more experience when you consider your dad's introduction to DFS and like how you kind of made it a family oriented thing. But what are some of the like things that you want to try out most with the NFL season? Anything at all stick out to you where you're like, I want to try a different model, or is it like I'm just going to keep honing what's been working?
Well, like when it comes to the showdown, that seemed to do fine last year. I kind of want to just, I want to try to keep that going as it was, if I can replicate that. But I am going to need a new optimizer this year. So, like, I know this year is going to be a little hurdle because I'm going to be learning a new optimizer to do my 20 maxes during my showdowns. So there will be that aspect. So since I'm doing that, I want to try to keep my process as much the same. It was working. Now let me transition it to a new optimizer before I try to add anything else on. The main slate did not go as well for me that year. So when it comes to like the Sunday main slate classic non-showdown, I might cut that back from what I was playing down to like, instead of doing my play action 20 max and building a single entry or two to throw in multiple things, I'll stick to one or two rake free contests that we know about, and then maybe build an extra lineup, keep it to like 3 or 4 lineups total throughout the week.
Now,
just
Donnie,
for Sunday.
Can I flip the coin on you? We just had this discussion with offensive linemen, and you were shocked that Gov didn't know any of these guys, and like that just, and you could tell in your voice that like bewildered your football sensibilities. How much of that last like 15-minute diatribe that Gov went on did you understand?
I mean, Gov's always been, kind of talking about his optimism and stuff. That all makes sense to me,
Fair enough. I was just wondering because I mean you were exposed to it, but like, so you do know,
especially in this off season with the best, we've been doing best ball drafts, and that's really kicked up the notch.
I do think it's going to keep changing the way we view sports, though, and the way consumers view us as sports fans. Donnie, would you say it's made you a smarter fan? This unveiling, this like Oz kind of utopia to the NFL. Like, of course, there's so much NFL knowledge you have to know to build like a good DFS lineup, but there's so much like nuances and terminology and like little things that like maybe it takes away from the game in some ways, or like makes it feel like it's a different sport entirely.
I was about to say that it's transitioned my knowledge a bit, because I used to like be an NFL trivia savant, which, I guess technically I still would be, but I'm not like focused on that as much. I'm not looking for the offensive lineman type things.
So would you say that's a bad or a good thing?
I enjoy both. I really enjoy both. It's just I don't have time for both, but as I get older, starting to do more things, I don't have as much time to be a trivia savant. Yeah. Therefore, this is easier. It keeps my mind going and occupied, but this is still just so much easier to follow.
Well, I mean, like normally with me, when I'm trying to like learn something like that, like the fact that you have a use for it makes it a little easier to keep that trivia. Whereas the trivia of offensive linemen is only useful to laugh at me for not knowing who Tristan Wirfs is, or Zach Martin, or any of these dumb fucks.
You know who Tristan Wirfs is? Like, what's that?
Again, like Logan said, I can probably name you like 3 dudes that are actually decent, but I don't know what.
That's just such a random one to. But okay, there we go.
David Bakhtiari, doesn't he play for the Packers still?
Yeah, he's still Chuck
again, I can name you like 5 dudes.
But I'll tell you what.
But I'm not sure I can name you the team they're on, and they might not even be current. Like, I love the Khalil brothers, but Matt and Ryan Khalil don't even play anymore.
And Gov, I love that we're bringing some humor into it, but let's be honest, it's like to steal a phrase from Kurt Angle, to like totally go circus with it. It's real. It's damn real. The reason you know some of these names is because you played Aaron Jones and you needed that cutback block, to spring 10 yards so you could get the extra.
Yeah, a lot of A.J. Dillon exposure is going to let you know who David Bakhtiari is. You'll listen to one podcast with Rogers and it's like, who is Baki? Who the fuck is this guy he calls Baki? Oh, that's Bakhtiari. Oh.
Donnie, you say, well, how does he know Tristan, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at how often the Tampa Bay Bucks were on like Sunday night or Monday night or Thursday night.
Or they were playing my Panthers.
Yeah, well, you're really well known in our circles. I'll give you full credit for not only being good at it, but Gov is very good at takes pride in his showdown research. So games that are featured in prime time. Like sometimes for football fans, like my mom, the casuals watch those games more. It's like, oh, it's on NBC. It's nighttime. It's let's grab a pop and a, Coca-Cola or a beer. And for some people like Gov is like that's showdown. That's like, an extra $1,000 on this one game. And that's why some of these guys. And again, that's why you don't know a whole unit, but you know the one marquee guy that makes a difference. You might know the left tackle.
I know the right guard works good in this team, so can I get runs up the middle? I know it's matchups too. It's like not only do I know Tristan Wirfs, I know the D end he's going against. It's going to be run. I know the guy blitzing down. I know the linebacker they're going to run to blitz. I know that they like to send their slot corner. So like, who's the slot receiver who might be open? Like those are, like you said, those are the kind of research I'm using in Showdown.
And Donnie, I'm going to be honest. If I said to you, name me 2 offensive linemen from Carolina, or Gov, name me 5 wide receivers from Carolina, or not Carolina, because that would be cheating because they're your team. Let's say the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to take Gov and any offense against like the nuance of football against you because I know he's done like the research. In terms of like building a lineup. And
I don't know if I can name one offensive line from Carolina, to be honest.
I think I have 4 Arizona Cardinal wide receivers, but I'm not sure if I have a 5th.
Right.
Like as soon as he said that, I'm like, wait, hold on. Dortch,
I've been thinking, I'm like,
Marquise.
who is on them?
Let's be honest though, like if they added punters to best ball draft, like next week.
I'd know fucking 20 punters, and it'd be like when I'm playing like if I were playing a lot more Madden, and doing sims on that, and getting left with freaking whatever punter is because I never drafted a punter when I would do like a fantasy draft in Madden. And all of a sudden,
baby.
Who was it when I was playing? When I was playing, there was like 2 brothers or something, and me and my brother when we would play, we would always get those 2 guys.
Punters?
Maybe they were kickers, but like I feel like there were 2 guys. One of them played for the Chiefs for a while.
Colquitt? No.
The Colquitt. Yes, we would always get stuck with Colquitt.
One was on Denver, one was on Kansas City.
Yes, me and my brother would always get the Colquitts, and we wouldn't care because it's kicker. We're worried about drafting the rest of our team.
Which is funny because they played in the same division even. So that's
exactly. So it's like I would know punters by tomorrow. If you told me if you gave punters points and did that instead of defense, I would know punters tomorrow.
But Donnie,
I know more tight ends than I should know because of DFS. I should know who Trey McBride is.
No one should know who Trey McBride is.
No one, honestly, as good as he might be, no one should know who Sam Laporta is. But we need to know these things for DFS.
Or, let's be honest. And this is kind of funny because it did win us some money around Christmas time. I think we built a group lineup with like our homework. We knew who Mercedes Lewis was because he was like, on one of those primetime showdown slates. And
he has a history in primetime showdown slates.
History with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like that's why.
Not just that, like even before then, he had primetime slates when he was in Jacksonville, where you just play the Mercedes. Like he was a showdown guy even back all the way in his Jacksonville days when he was actually a stud tight end.
Now, Donnie,
but yes, like knowing that stuff. That the only reason I know that is because of DFS.
Yeah, hold on though, but don't spoil it, Donnie. Why do you think we know that name? outside of like the statistical NFL stuff, like he's friends with Aaron Rodgers, of course, that's obvious. Like, why do you think we know that name from a DFS perspective?
In the last 5 years, really no idea.
He's cheap. I'll spoil it. Like Showdown, there's very limited options, right? And you're talking about like having to get different and like a one game scenario. He's cheap, and you could look at the numbers and say Aaron Rodgers throws to tight end.
It's like Boston Scott. Boston Scott's going to be cheap.
Same thing.
And when you're playing, when you play the Giants, he's in play as the cheap fuck. The same way Mercedes Lewis is in play as the cheap fuck on his teams in primetime games. And it's just how it is.
Yeah, I'll give you another example that's like totally a couple years ago, so it's not even biased at all. Like Matthew Stafford made Theo Riddick a thing, even though he never really had a running back or wide receiver position. It's just Matthew Stafford loved to throw that guy screen passes. So he became a fantasy darling, even though the majority of football fans didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff happens. Taysom Hill gets totally more credit in like best ball drafts because he can be drafted as a tight end. And if he plays quarterback, Donnie, in some best ball formats, not DraftKings, but there's one called Underdog, if he plays quarterback, he will get tight end points for your best ball team. So there are people drafting him. So like there are that weird nuances, just like real life trivia at the bar, that you get. And so like I don't think you should dog anyone's excitement for the NFL season of 2024. And like you mentioned, like even to go full circle, Snyder and not owning the Commanders anymore. Good news, running backs being mad. I think that's also good because now we get to explore, hey, are they offensive weapons? Are they more receivers nowadays? Do they deserve money? Not okay, maybe you get over the fact, do they, don't they? Will they? Who gets there? Who makes the stand? Is it Saquon Barkley that holds up for 2 years?
Do one of them ever win a Super Bowl?
Right. But that's what we watch though. Like someone asked me like, well, what's the difference between the writer's strike and like the NFL, like, do you think it's going to affect sports? I'm like, look, maybe it helps the numbers here and there, but the reason most of us watch sports in the first place is because we want a real life action movie. Like we want a real life like superhero story, like Damar Hamlin coming back from near death. Like we want that comeback story.
I mean, technically, it was death. I mean, he died on the field.
And my best friend's brother works on the Buffalo Bills staff. Like he was there. Like it was that dire. But like we love that story. There is a compassion there, but also an intrigue when something goes totally negative. Like the Tiger Woods stuff when he was going through his like personal life. Some people just didn't care that it was personal. They're like, give me more, give me the gossip, give me that soap opera. Like that's also part of why we watch sports. So I didn't want to go super long today, but I do want to like touch on different things that we can look forward to, and like DFS and like I'm very excited to track these two best ball strategies I had, where we did one in the beginning of the year and the end. But I'm going to be honest, the thing I thought about the most is the Rainmaker's potential. I've been thinking about that ever since we agreed to do it.
See, and they did just release a little bit of info about the field pass. So, like, if you wanted to get a field pass and get the perks of having it, the extra benefits, the free packs and stuff, it's coming up here, I believe, on Monday. It's actually, I think it happened tonight, and tomorrow is when all the drops are happening. So if you wanted to get in early, now is the time to go and do it. But it looks pretty like I loved Rainmakers last year. It gave me something extra to do on every game as long as I had the cards. And like collecting the cards was part of it.
Are you doing that when it, like you said, doing tonight or tomorrow?
Let's see. The drop was supposed to be I think they said like 8 o'clock on the 23rd. So that would have been like an hour ago. And then, but that is for the private people who were already field pass holders last year. I think the full drop happens like tomorrow
Right.
I don't know the exact time. Let me see if I can pull it up. It's in the Discord.
I wouldn't even be surprised if they like have a random like window time where it's like between 5 and 8 it's gonna drop, just so they don't overload the servers. Either way, though, like I truly think, and like I don't think it's gonna get ugly, but I think we can build such beautiful content around the three of us discussing the portfolio of players.
Oh, it's actually okay. So it's not until mid 11:59 tonight, not 8 o'clock.
Oh,
and then it looks like they will go on sale at 5 o'clock tomorrow.
5 a.m. or p.m.?
No, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 7/24, and they will be on sale until 5 p.m. on Wednesday. That's the only. So the next 3 days, if you want to get early access to the Rainmaker stuff, now is the time to invest in a core, rare, whatever tier you can. I'm not going to be able to make a Rainmaker tier one because those field passes are going for $10,000 a piece. But the $30 ones for core might be a good investment if we're going to play all year.
It could be, or the opposite end of that is
I think the one of best value is probably the elite one, just because it has there's not as many, there's only 500 as opposed to like 7,500 they're selling, but it's $600. But if I remember right, last year, most elite players that were worth a damn were selling for $500 to $600. So if you get one star player out of that, you probably pay for it. And then whatever benefits else you're supposed to get, because there's supposed to be benefits and pack drops all season for getting one of these field passes.
I'll be honest.
So like that's the reason to get it, is to get the extra stuff dropped to you all season.
We could maybe do it, and maybe it is like the best long-term play if all we were doing was like
even just picking up one of the core ones, because there's 7,500. I'm not sure if they're all going to go in these 3 days. I'm going to try to pick one up for myself.
I think they will,
but we'll see. It all depends. Like I think there was only like 2,200 people who would have first access. So even if all of them take it, there's still going to be like 5,000 on the market for the next 3 days.
I would recommend that we don't, and here's why. And like maybe it is the right move if you're like building a team, but from a content perspective, I feel like if you're going to cover Rainmakers, most of that cover will do it from the exclusive, from the like, look at the shiny holographic Pokemon, like the best of the best, right? They'll flash those for the SEO value on a video, where it's like, I know watching like Ultimate Team and things like that, there'd be like a lot of no money spent teams. I think that'd be our better kind of approach. It's like, not obviously we probably wouldn't be able to do it where we don't spend any money, but like, or even say like, oh, we have to.
Well, I mean, we'll have to have an initial cost up front to like just get started, but we could, in theory, win packs and players and money and just reinvest.
I do think like that slow build though, Gov, is like the best way for content to be like, hey, look, you can follow us, from little seedling to big pine tree, like that farming kind of element.
I get what for our concept, I could get that, but if you really wanted to like play it, if you were one of the people who wanted to come and like start doing Rainmakers, I don't think this is I don't think it's a horrible investment.
I think that
I think I'd rather you go and get right now the $30 or whatever tier field pass than going and buying random $20 to $25 packs that they will have.
Right. And I think the best like entertainment for the stream is just like going through and playing the, almost looking at it like a stock market portfolio of like, here's what's on the market, what's the best value, who's the most priced guys, do we overreact to week one, do we overreact to Thanksgiving slates, like those conversations between the three of us, I think not only our content goal, but maybe comedy goal. Like maybe that's the entertainment.
It might be, and I'll be happy to do that. I just want to throw out there, I think if you're gonna truthfully want to play and invest any good deal in Rainmakers.
Well, that's good, Donnie.
I think the field passes are a good bet.
What are you thinking, Donnie? Because I do have another point I kind of want to mention before we move on completely.
I'm still kind of lost on the Rainmaker stuff, to be honest.
Why you lost it? Because I do think that'd be good, a good banter. Because it's an introduction to a lot of people. Like I know when we first started the show, one of the biggest questions.
I think I just need to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem too hard to understand. It's like they've taken two different things. The one thing is think of it like a sports card market. There are cards of players, and people are buying and selling them. They have different rarity tiers, and they all have serial numbers. Like 1 of 200 or something. Or
yeah, but how does
10,000.
the rarity affect their performance when it comes?
The rarity does not. The rarity just affects what tier you can place them, which contest you can play them.
Think of it like
all the rarity, like when it comes to rare, elite, legendary. That's literally just which contest. Think about that is basically like your entry fee.
Okay.
So are we entering core contests? Are we entering rare contests? Depends. I don't have, like I said, I'm not going to have the bankroll to be entering legendary and Rainmaker contests. That's like entering the $550 contest every Sunday. I don't bankroll for that. I'm playing in core, or if I get enough money and have enough rare cards, I might play in rare.
Right. And Donnie, I do think it's going to be like 2K, where you have the guys that really want to grind and not spend any money upgrading their players. And then
and they'll just buy and sell your guy. Yeah, think of it like on 2K or that. You're just going to buy and sell your players on the market, making small profits.
Mm-hmm.
Sell off whatever junk you got that you don't need, and just get as little bit, and then whatever you have, put that into a new guy that you can then play every week or buy and sell for profit. Maybe it becomes more beneficial. Maybe we get a good guy and we play him 1 week, and it becomes more beneficial for us to sell him to get 2 mediocre guys for the next week, or sell him to get a different stud, sell our Mahomes to go get a Jalen Hurts or something.
Or let's be honest, we could even do it like this, where it's like the 3 of us build 3 separate, very cheap lineups, and then we track which of the 3 cheap lineups do well, and then build off. There's so many different avenues that we could use. But yeah, the tiers basically, Donnie, are just like different divisions, like in a boxing match. You get your heavyweights, your light heavyweights. It's just a way to make sure that the rich people don't totally crush the noobs.
So that's the one side of Rainmakers, is the different cards, then their rarities, and buying and selling to make sure you can play in the upper slowly making profits on your core cards until you can get enough rares, or buying the cheap enough rares that let you play, because you still are even the higher tiers, they're not full on. So once you get the rare, you can still have a core card in your lineup. Mm-hmm. Once you get to elite, you can still have 2 rare cards in your lineup, and so on. Rainmaker tier is your 5-man lineup only needs 2 Rainmaker cards to play in the Rainmaker tier. And then the other 3 can be legendaries. Whereas in legendary, you need 4 legendaries and 1 elite. Or 5 legendaries, of course.
Okay.
So there's that one part of it, which might take some time to get, but I think you would understand it. And then there's the other side, which is there will be contests that we can build lineups using our cards. Our player pool will be our cards. Yeah. Instead of having a player pool where everyone has a salary, there is no salary. You just have to put the cards together and have them.
Right. So it really does, Donnie, come down to when you buy and when you sell.
And you have to build a whole DraftKings lineup.
Well, it's a shortened one. So it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and then you get another spot that has to be a wide receiver or tight end.
Yeah.
And then a 5th spot that can be anything that's not a quarterback. So it could be another running back, could be another wide receiver, could be a second tight end, could be a defense.
So
they also have,
because
they have, I was about to say, because they have showdown, they also have defensive kickers. So
you could play Jalen Hurts, Cooper Kupp, Diggs, Jefferson, all in the same lineup.
I was about to say, last year we had that where I think I named a bunch of kickers because I had a lot of their Rainmakers cards.
Yep.
It's like you were surprised how many kickers I could actually name. Well, I was playing Rainmakers and had like 20 of them.
But you could play all the top players in the league,
right? If I want, yeah, exactly. Like I think they have like they have a one restriction called Superstar. So at the beginning of every year and then halfway through the season, they'll declare like 4 people from each position. So like 4 running backs, 4 quarterbacks, 4 wide receivers, and that they'll call them superstars, and you can't play more than one of them.
Similar to old ESPN fantasy leagues.
But they have rules where like certain guys, like if your quarterback is a superstar, then no skill player on that team will be a superstar. That way they can't stop you from stacking. Like last year, like Mahomes was a superstar. So that meant Kelsey was never a superstar. But they don't have that rule for quarterback and running back. So that meant early in the year when Justin Herbert was a superstar because he was coming into the season like one of the top 5 quarterbacks, Austin Eckler was also a superstar. So you could never play Herbert and Eckler in the same lineup.
But so you could play them in separate lineups.
Right.
And that's the thing, Donnie. As long as you have 6 players, I think it's 6.
It's 5.
It's a 5. So as long as you have 5 players, you can put them all in as many. I think up to like 100 contests or something.
Every card can only be used once.
Yeah, right. I assume that own tab is how many people have bought it.
Owned. Yeah, how many people own a Jalen Hurts? 24,000 people own some copy.
So that diminishes the value.
That's why.
No, because he has it set to just core. So wouldn't that mean it's just the core ones?
That's just core.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of core Jalen. Yeah.
This is just rare. There's only 1,000 of them. There's basically the same. There's 1,600 or so. You get the Rainmaker. There are 8 Jalen Hurts in Rainmaker. None of them are for sale.
30,000? Is that $30,000?
Correct.
Yeah, 30K. Josh. If you want a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, it's going to cost you about 30K.
That sounds crazy, right? And it is. But EA Sports gets that almost every year.
I know. 100K for Joe Burrow.
Well, that's why I want to mention it, though, because Donnie, me and you have played sports video games our whole life. We would still think that's crazy that EA Sports drums that kind of money. But
I think not like 99 cents for if we were like, these are last year's cards, so I wouldn't want to buy these, but like 99 cents for a cup compared to where everyone else is going, that would be a steal in my book.
See,
right.
Just looking right here, like right now, if I remember last year, Hurts was a superstar, Allen was a superstar, Mahomes was a superstar. Cup was the first half of the year. Burrow was the second half of the year. Jefferson was all year. Eckler was all year. McCaffrey was all year. Tyreek was the second half of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields probably will. That's the thing. Like, they haven't announced this year exactly who will be. So we don't know who the top 5 quarterbacks that are going to be superstars next year. I assume Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. Who's going to be that 5th one? That was the Justin Herbert. Like last year, like you had Justin Herbert and Aaron Rodgers started out as two of the 5. And at the end of the year, those had become Joe Burrow and I forget who else it was.
I do have a theory that I kind of want to float out to people, and we can kind of with a cliffhanger. Is I think what we should do is try to figure out who the superstars are and who we actually think by week 5 is going to be, and we should target the person that is not yet. Because I don't want to play at the top of the market, but you want to get that budding superstar that's just about there. So, like, Trevor Lawrence would be an option I would consider. Like,
I agree. I think Lawrence might be the best option for that.
Those are kind of like, but I would want to do that through the whole position. Who are the top 5 guys at the running position, and who's right below that? You know.
And remember, if you make a wide receiver a superstar, his quarterback can't be. So if you're making Burrow a superstar, you cannot make Chase a superstar.
So, like, if Ridley and Lawrence
Chase
go
could
out
be
this
played.
year.
Yeah. So like Ridley and Lawrence go out. Like
And-
that's what I had last year. I had a Trevor Lawrence with my Evan Ingram, and I could play them every week, and then just fill a running back and a couple of guys around that, and have a solid line.
And that's the thing that you can win with more than one lineup. So like having two superstars isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like you don't want to have too many superstars and not enough filler to go along with it because you want both lineups to do well if you have two superstars. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, at what point do you max out the top lineup you have? Like, where you're like, okay, do I go one superstar and then get like a bunch of, top B plus talent, or do I go two superstars and fill in with C plus talent? And I think that kind of strategy is going to be really fun for us to like. I think it would be an argument, but like, I think the three of us have so much mutual respect for each other, it will never be contentious. But I do think like that's honestly going to be the best discussions we have. I mean,
like I said, I'm looking forward to it. I think Donnie will just like with DFS. I think once we do week one, Donnie will see how it works. We'll have a better feel for it.
Well, and we'll have it.
But the concepts, the 2K and the Madden and Madden Ultimate Team. You know the concepts of that and how they have a stock market to buy and sell the player cards. And you now know how to build DFS lineups and build lineups that way. And it's just combining those two things into one giant thing you can do all year.
I want to make a promise to you guys as well. That when we do this, it's not that all the content will be on the site, but I promise you in some way, the three of us will communicate with every purchase we make. Whether that's a text, whether that's a DM, I will have 100% verification from the three of you, or including me, the two of you. The three of us will make the decision together one way or the other, so we can document it and on the podcast. The viewers are going to be a part of this just as much as we are, because I do think that's kind of the fun of sports is when you can include other people. Speaking of including, I think we did a very good job of concluding this show with some actionable knowledge, what to expect, some DFS tips, some stuff that we don't even know what's going to happen, but could be good. Any last quick hitters that we should hit on? If we're going to try to wrap this up within an hour?
No, that's pretty much it for me.
I was about to say that was a good one for tonight. We're going to start getting more into football season, so good first sort of show as we're starting to get cranked up towards that. It's almost August. It's almost preseason.
I think we're 50 days away.
Yep.
Nice.
And let me be honest about this. The preseason, if you guys haven't tried it, would be a perfect time for you to invest in DFS. Very small amount, 25-cent competitions, dollar competitions. There's a lot of, variety out there. Obviously, starters want to play this amount of time, but if you want to do the research and just want to have a little bit of fun, put a bit of extra sweat on the preseason, it is actually a very fun, different way to play DFS football. I think it's underrated, Gov, if you haven't done a lot of it. I've done quite a bit of it. It's actually very fun and very different from any other NFL product. With that, just like our podcast, very different, very nuanced, trying new things. Thanks for joining me. Have a good night.
Night, everyone.
Peace out, everyone.